May 28th, GameStop announced that they bought Bitcoin, 4,710 of them, as a matter of fact. However, in the press release, they did not tell us, the investors, at what price they purchased Bitcoin. So do we know exactly when they bought it? Was it in April when it was cheap? Did they just buy it in the week running up to May 28th when Bitcoin was trading at $107,000, $110,000, $112,000 a coin? Let's talk about a couple of ideas, and then I think we'll find out on June 10th when the company releases the first quarter 10Q. GameStop's disclosure of a Bitcoin purchase on May 28th follows notice that the company gave to investors in March of 2025 that they wanted to raise up to $1.5 billion of convertible debt, which they did, to support buying a Bitcoin treasury. That comes on the heels of recent votes by Microsoft and Meta to reject a Bitcoin treasury, votes by their shareholders by a wide margin. And Amazon had been requested to consider a similar proposal for their most recent proxy statement, and the board decided not to put it on the proxy for whatever reason. So Amazon, Microsoft, and Meta all rejecting a Bitcoin treasury. Now, it's a little bit different with a GameStop. The company has a business not like Meta, Amazon, and Microsoft, which generate tons, billions of dollars of operating income and free cash flow every quarter. GameStop, on the other hand, is still not profitable in its core business. They do make a slight profit through interest that they're earning off of treasury bonds. So I do really like, for GameStop, this Bitcoin treasury idea. It is a little bit risky, but a little bit bold idea to go out and try and add some additional earnings onto the income statement. They would be unrealized gains that get added to the income statement, boosting earnings per share. That is, if the price of Bitcoin appreciates above the price that GameStop paid for their Bitcoin, which is why, knowing what they paid for it is pretty important to investors. And it was a kind of glaring omission, in my opinion, that they did not put that on there. I think, though, that we will find out on June 10th in the 10Q. They will most likely disclose exactly what they paid on average per Bitcoin. Obviously, if Bitcoin falls below the price that GameStop paid, that would negatively affect their income statement as unrealized losses. And that is one of the main reasons that the big tech giants, Meta, Microsoft, and Amazon, were not really interested in adding the volatility and the risk of Bitcoin into their treasury assets. For GameStop, like I said, I think that they need to be a little bit more bold right now, and it's worth taking a little bit of that cash they raised from the convertible bonds and buying some Bitcoin and crossing their fingers, and we will see. I'm generally bullish about Bitcoin, so you're going to have to just deal with my positive bias that I think this is a good idea over the long term. Maybe in the short term it goes down, I don't know. But over the long term, say 5-10 year period, I think Bitcoin will be higher than where it is right now. The question is, why did they leave out their basis, the cost basis of their Bitcoin? Was it a strategic decision because they bought it really cheap in early April at $74,000 a coin, and they don't want to let the shorts know until they surprise them on June 10th when they release the earnings? Or was it embarrassment because they bought at the top and they didn't want to disclose that either? I think that based on the severity of the market's reaction, GameStop had been trading at $37 in pre-market that morning on the 28th. Dropped all the way to $29.80. Based on the severity of that correction, the market, the big players that were waiting for news from GameStop about buying a bunch of Bitcoin or disclosing a cost basis, the market didn't like that GameStop withheld that data. And so the stock price got spanked. Will they get redemption on June 10th, or will the price climb back up between now and June 10th as excitement into Q1 builds? I don't know. We will have to wait and see. Here's the thing, though, and I was talking with the folks in my Discord about the timing of that May 28th disclosure from GameStop. The company filed an 8K letting us know that they owned 4,710 Bitcoin, and a company has 4 business days after a material event to file an 8K. And if we back up 4 business days, that would get us to May 22nd to May 23rd. I'm just kind of spitballing some ideas here. If we look at the Bitcoin chart here, May 22nd was when Bitcoin peaked most recently at $112,000. And one thing that I was thinking about is, it's possible in my mind that GameStop bought Bitcoin as early as April, around 74,000, and maybe all the way up this chain. Maybe they were going in and picking it up cheap. But right around this date, May 22nd, they crossed a $500 million valuation threshold. And it's up to the judgment of the company, the legal team and the financial team, to determine what is a material event for GameStop. And perhaps when they bought, 250, 300 million of Bitcoin back in April, that was such a small part of their total assets that they decided that was not a material event. However, once it crested $500 million, the valuation of those Bitcoin, they decided, okay, this now is a material amount and we must go ahead and disclose it. So I'm going to say there is a possibility that GameStop bought cheap Bitcoin. I can't tell you at what price, maybe from 74,000 all the way up to 110,000. It's also a possibility that they just bought in the few days prior to May 28th. The MicroStrategy type announcement, when they make it, they'll say, we bought this many Bitcoin over the last 5 to 7 days. We will have to wait and see, I guess, what type of news GameStop announces on June 10th as we start to learn what kind of communication strategy they plan to have with investors regarding their Bitcoin investments. But I think it is interesting to think about the fact that they could have bought it cheaper. If so, that would add a few pennies to the income statement. And, maybe in another video this week, I'll break that down. I have already run the numbers of what I expect for Q1 in terms of loss from operations, gain from interest on their treasuries, and we can easily factor in some estimates for, if GameStop did a best case scenario here, how would that affect the Q1 earnings? So stick around later this week and I'll put that video out. In the meantime, let me know what you think. What was GameStop's reason for waiting until May 28th to make this 8K disclosure that they bought 4,710 Bitcoin? Is it because they had just completed a batch of buying Bitcoin, or maybe they had been buying it for 2 months? And like I said in this video, it reached a level over $500 million of value where management deemed that this was now a material amount of assets to disclose to investors. I want to see your comments down below. Let me know what you think. I am Tony Denaro. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.